talk to Democrats about the latest news in the Idaho legislature. Now here are Paul, Jay, and Chris on 670 KBOI.
Paul Jay still fighting his cold one last day. He will be back with us on Tuesday. David Allen here, Chris Walton. We are joined in the next title studio by Representative John Gannon from District 17. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Well, it's the end of the week, and it's been an exciting week, and I'm ready for the weekend.
I second all of those things. Since you're used to being on committees, I'm seconding all of those things.
Are you ready for a constitutional convention?
That issue, of course, is coming up today. I think they're having a hearing right now as we speak.
Yeah.
And you know, the Constitutional Convention is probably a place where there's going to be secret deals and a lot of insider discussions. There's no provisions for public hearings at a constitutional convention. And really, what I think the whole constitutional convention discussion is really an excuse for legislators and Congress not to do their jobs. I mean, if legislators and legislatures and Congress do their jobs, then we wouldn't even be discussing this. And I think the voters need to be more careful in choosing their members of Congress and their legislators, and scrutinize. And
there's just something about the words Constitution and backroom deals that don't go together very well.
Well, what are you going to do? You're going to have these delegates from 50 states gather, and what are they going to do? Have a public hearing on whether to keep the Second Amendment? Are they going to have a public hearing on whether to keep jury trials? Are they going to have a public hearing on all these other issues that they're talking about? And if they were going to have a public hearing, you'd have to have a pretty big place, because I think there's a lot of members of the public that are interested in that kind of thing.
I would. Are there any buildings that hold millions of people?
Exactly. Yeah. They're going to have big computers to
have them in stadiums,
data centers.
Have them in stadiums with big screens.
Big screens. yeah.
And it won't be over until everyone gets to talk.
So we have a wonderful we have a system right now. It isn't always wonderful, I won't say that, but we have a system right now, and the answer is for people to participate in the system and demand the kinds of actions they want.
Right.
And there's primaries, there's general elections.
Yeah. People, we keep hearing the last week or so that people reminding other people that things aren't over when the election is over. Okay, you don't elect somebody and then just sit back and let them do whatever they want during their term. You have to communicate, or they might not, understand what you want.
Tremendously important to let your representatives and elected officials know exactly what you want from your government, and especially at the ballot box.
Yeah.
The smoking age bill that Fred Martin brought up the other day, what are your thoughts on that?
I have real mixed emotions about that, because 18-year-olds are able to go into the military, and so I think if it comes to a vote, I'm going to vote against that. If people are old enough to go in the military, then I think they're old enough to make their own decision regarding smoking. I don't recommend smoking. I discouraged it with my kids, but if it's legal for adults, then I think it has to be legal for the 18 to 21-year-olds.
It does seem like if you've been in the military, there shouldn't be anything back home that's not legal for you to do. I mean, apart from the things that are just against the law anyway. But, of course, you can't rent a car till you're 25, so...
Well, there is that,
And I can hear every 18-year-old saying, well, then lower the drinking age to 18.
Well, that's been an argument my whole lifetime.
Yeah.
That's been an argument back and forth. And but with the smoking bill, I just think that that's overregulation at this point.
Yesterday we had a couple of Republicans in, and one of the things we discussed was the rearranging of the science books and what is and what is not taught or discussed in Idaho schools. And one of them said to me, he says, well, there are like 375 different topics, and we only got rid of 5. And, I thought, I wonder what number they would have to get rid of for it to be a bad thing in his eyes. But what do you think about all that?
Well, I think that fundamentally the the schools should teach both sides of controversial issues, and one of them, and of course, climate change is a controversy. I recognize that some people don't believe in climate change. I tend to believe that there's something going on. I don't know how, the exact parameters of that, but I think that fundamentally the schools should teach both sides. It's a tough thing to do, but the kids should be exposed to the different arguments and viewpoints, and together with their family and parents, make up their own decisions on where they stand.
It's a Minority Friday with Representative John Gannon from District 17. 8:45, one final look at traffic this morning. Brought to you by the show in the Next Title studio. Representative John Gannon from District 17 is with us. I've only lived here 5.5 years, but everywhere I've lived, up in New Mexico, Texas, and here, education is always top of mind. Mm-hmm. Is there a situation to where teachers are going to get paid more, better schools, better books, better? Is it in the budget? Is it something that all the legislatures care enough about?
Well, I think it's my top priority, and the education system has got to be strong. It's got to be well funded, so that our kids have an opportunity to succeed in the 21st century, and that includes K through 12, and includes the post-secondary education.
But we always hear what a huge percentage of the Idaho budget goes to education. Yes. I think it's the biggest thing, by far. And at the same time, people tell us, oh, we rank number 47 or 48 in the nation with certain stuff. How can we narrow that gap?
Well, education funding is a basic function of the states. Mm-hmm. All the states are responsible for a significant part of education funding. So that's why you see, a large part of the budget go to education. And I think right now we're about 50%. A little less than 50% for K-12, and about 15% for the post-secondary. Right. And so it's something that we absolutely need to fund in proportion to our revenue. And I think the legislature has made a number of mistakes by reducing revenue, especially after the recession, and not adequately funding the education part, because a lot of our young parents and workers want a strong education system for their kids, and if Idaho doesn't have that, then we're not going to attract the jobs,
or the companies that provide them, right?
Yeah, and so it's essential that we do that. It's important.
Another top of mind issue is roads funding. We have roads all over Idaho that need repair. We have bridges that need to be replaced or repaired, and we need to find the money somewhere for that.
Well, we do, especially with the very difficult winter we've had, challenging winter. One thing that is interesting about the road funding is, and I think we've been looking at a number of different funding mechanisms to help. But one thing that's interesting about this year is there may be this federal money, the FEMA money, available for some of these bridges washed out. I mean, you remember what happened in New Orleans when they flooded. They got all kinds of money.
Right.
And so that may be a factor in how much we need to raise to help the districts and areas and IT.
And I know the governor declared several of the counties to be disaster areas.
Right.
But FEMA's federal, so would they adhere to that?
Yeah, the details aren't there yet.
Yeah.
They have to make a highway district, for example, would have to. I think they'd have to make an application to the feds and through the Homeland Security. I think is the one that runs it now. Don't hold me to that, but I think it is.
I know during the Nate Shellman Show in the afternoon here on KBOI, faith healing is a big topic. There's been a lot of talk about a faith healing bill. The possibility of that, your thoughts on it?
Well, I've got two of them, and of course I've been working on this for 3 years. I think that children have a right to live until they're 18 and then make their decisions, and that parents should take care of those children, so the children's basic medical needs, and not allow children to die or to become disabled or have a disability, lose their hearing because their earache isn't treated properly, those kinds of things. And so right now, I have two bills. They're sitting there. Anybody wants to use them, more than welcome. I've heard, as you've probably heard, that the Senate is studying different options. Personally, I think the issue's been studied enough, and we need to take steps to move forward.
This seems like one of those topics that Republicans and Democrats and independents and everybody can agree on.
That's what I thought in 2014 when I brought the first bill, and it did get printed, and there wasn't. And then, there was an agreement. I'll just say that. And I mean, there's a lot of different ways. There's several different ways you can do it. You can do it outright, just repeal the exemption, or you can modify the exemption substantially, but still keep a little bit of it. But there has not been movement by the legislative leadership to do that.
We have people in the state that do not have health insurance, and they're considered to be the people in the gap. And filling the gap is always something that the legislature is concerned with. Do you see that gap being filled by the end of this session?
No, I don't.
Okay.
And we're just kind of. It seems like the legislative leadership's kind of in limbo at this point, and there is a very limited program that has been proposed, but it's so limited that most people who are concerned about the issue don't seem to be too enthusiastic about it. And so I don't think there's going to be a solution this session, and probably going to fall on Congress, because they're the ones that say they're going to rewrite the Affordable Care Act.
Yeah, I thought we might end up just following the Fed this time. So.
You mean just waiting until?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's probably half of it too, waiting to see what they do.
Right.
Of course, we could wait for the Constitutional Convention in a couple of years, and
also Christmas is coming.
But and when I say that, that's really Constitutional Convention is not solving our problems. It's the job of Congress and the legislature to get our problems solved.
Representative John Gannon, we thank you so much for your time this morning on KBOI.
Thank you, guys.
Have a great day.
Have a great day.